This is Investment Tanking having a look at the bizarre little contraption that is the BTSV. It is the boxiest, slopiest, speediest and mind-bogglingest thing on the battlefield. If you had to give this tank a review with one word, it would just be, what? If you couldn't guess, it was a prototype designed around the period the Russians figured out that sloped armour was better than flat, leading it to look like an omnidirectional doorstop. The best terrain you could wish for playing the BTSV is a wide open field with lots of room to manoeuvre. So of course, Province was the matchmaker's first little joke of the day. The most notable feature of the BTSV is its phenomenal speed, which it inherits from the rest of the BT series. After all, the BT series' unabbreviated name, which I won't dare pronounce as my Russian, translated into English literally means high-speed tank. With a power to weight of 38.14 and a top speed of 62 km an hour, it's theoretically more powerful and faster than an AMX CDC. But therein lies another problem: it can't turn to save its life. With a measly 33 degrees of hull traverse, and the turning circle is huge. You can't circle tanks at all, just do a drive-by shooting and get out of range as fast as you can. Compare it with the BT7's 54 degrees a second traverse and you'll start to feel a little out of shape. Unfortunately, the BTSV also suffers the AMX CDC's balancing issues with its power to weight, with massive amounts of terrain resistance, further slowing acceleration and making cornering even harder. With all that negative nonsense behind us, we can take a look at the armour. Its hull doesn't look anything special, being 25 frontally, 20 on the sides and 16 on the rear, but it's the extreme angling that brings the BTSV into the spotlight. With armour that thin, you can't expect fantastic effective armour thickness, but what you can expect is a ton of auto-bounce angles just waiting to happen. Don't rely on them, and don't try to side scrape either, as they work best when hurtling past the enemy at top speed. If you stay stationary, the enemy has more time to aim for the weaker parts of your armour, just like your turret. You're effectively immune to all tier 1 to 3 autocannons, and the only thing that can reliably penetrate you are the tank destroyers like the Marder. As I mentioned earlier, the main weak spot is the turret, being 25mm thick all round. This can be fairly reliably penetrated by all enemies, including all autocannons, which is exactly why you shouldn't stay still. It's all very well and good having a fast tank, but if it can't kill anything, what's the point? Well, some good news and some bad news. It gets the same 45mm 20KL that the T127 and Valentine 2 get. The good news? The 51mm AP penetration goes through pretty much anything at tier 3. The bad news? The 51mm AP penetration doesn't go through pretty much everything at tier 4. The good news? It never sees tier 5. There's preferential matchmaking at tiers 3 and 4. The bad news? You're still going to have to fight M3 Lees, Grants, Matildas, AMX 40s and Panzer B2s. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. The APCR round has 84mm of penetration, which can just kill anything at tier 4. You'll be firing a lot of gold, but let's face it, nobody plays tier 3 to grind credits, and this tank is brutal if it fires nothing but APCR. That's right, stat pad and seal club away. The BT7 up ahead is trying to do the drive-by shooting and get out of range technique. I chickened out when I saw that if I moved in, I would be totally surrounded and outgunned, so I did exactly what I told you to never do. I stopped, sat still, semi-side-scraped, but I was very careful to not actually show any armour. I used the wreckage to completely hide myself, just so I could peekaboo the enemies when they came to me one by one. The engine is powerful enough to push wrecks and other physics objects around in order to use them to your advantage. This includes live tanks, of course. At 62 km an hour and 13.11 tons, you can still turn yourself into a cruise missile against the right enemy, inflicting heavy damage if you turn diagonally at the last second to hit them with the pointy corner of your tank. This maximises the damage done to the enemy and minimises the damage done to yourself by using the recently added ramming mechanics a few patches ago. You can make this even better by using a skill like Controlled Impact or even equipment like a Spall Liner. Back to the gun stats. The average damage is 47 per shot, with a high explosive giving 62. It's not really worth using high explosive though, as it only gives 23mm of penetration and will rarely do the full damage. The accuracy is average at best for the tier, with 0.41 at 100 meters, but the aim time is actually quite good at 1.71. Don't bother equipping a gun lane drive, it's just not worth it. The reload is just over 2 seconds, giving it a good DPM of around 1200, but the gun depression, however, lacks, with only -4 degrees. Being that the BT is quite tall, you can certainly feel it while playing. Where the BTSV really starts to get fun, however, is the final moments of the battle, where there are the best players left and low health targets to put out of their misery. Fighting a Tetrarch isn't the best idea, as that 64mm of penetration could easily shred our BT, but auto bounces save the day multiple times. That's where the bonus mobility comes in. You can outflank and outmaneuver any tank you need to fight. And that's a lot of help when you don't really want to get shot by it. Finally, you can just use that great speed to close in on the final enemy. So, is it a good tank? Well, good is a strong word. Weird might suit it better. As to whether it's worth having, it's rare, funny, and a great pub stomper. Though, the credits are absolutely rubbish even if you don't fire gold. As I said, no one plays tier 3 to grind credits. You just play to have fun. So, there's nothing more to say than spend more gold and play more tanks.